It's time to look at more headlines. The world's getting crazier and crazier. Well, that's no headline really. Here, right here, we look at just a quick look at the headlines to see if we can add some context to understand what's really going on, if anything. But yes, there always is a lot of stuff going on. Uh, Here we have, and I look at the Drudge Report because it aggregates a lot of headlines that many news offices around the world historically have looked to because they just have a knack for picking out things that will attract a lot of eyeballs. And it's all sensationalism, which is what all the media has become today. Well, I got to look at myself, see if I'm on camera. Okay, I'm on camera. So here we have all this stuff. We've reached, America has done it. Yay, go America. $40 trillion national debt. And this starts a long time ago, but every currency that's ever existed has, I think in most cases, destroyed itself in this way, overspent, inflated itself out of existence, and the U.S. dollar seems to be headed in that direction. Now, the U.S. dollar is the exchange currency of the world, so a lot of money comes through the U.S. But the U.S. is just printing and printing and printing. Okay, what was I trying to say? It started back in the 90s, where one of the best presidents, and I hate to say this, Bill Clinton, he balanced the budget. So at one point, the deficit was at zero, and the national debt, I believe, was below $1 trillion. But since then, every president, George W. Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, and Trump again, just inflated it, created $1 trillion here and $1 trillion there. And everybody had their reasons. We had those big wars, and the Republicans they didn't want to lose any midterm elections, so they kept inflating the economy. Even though there was the economic downturn, and then when Obama came in, he didn't want to inherit an economy that was going down the tubes because of that real estate crisis. So another $1 trillion, and every year there was another $1 trillion, and then we have COVID, $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there, and it's foreign wars, and people are wondering how far it can go. And I know for several years now, this sort of little collection of headlines here, it says bond market going to burst, stock market bubble, dump debt as crisis looms, Vance discreet plan to address the $40 trillion owed. You could have looked at about any month in the last 15 or even 20 years and seen people screaming that this is about to happen. Of course, this sort of stuff will be played up as we get closer to the midterm elections because the media wants to disadvantage the incumbent party. But it's been way too long since we've had a big downturn in the economy. Usually there's at least one every decade. And the last one we really had was in the 90s, the 97 currency crash. There have been little dips since then. There was the real estate bubble of the late aughts, as they say, but that was softened by this currency inflation that they were doing. And you stand by as a citizen of a country, and you're saying, "Wow, my country rules everything. We got military bases in almost 100 countries. Our military in your country." See, you don't have military in my country, but we were like, "Oh, we're the new Roman Empire. We control everything. Everybody puts their money through our system." But at the same time, we're destroying ourselves from the inside. Okay, here's another thing. This crazy thing, the ballroom where Trump tore down the east wing of the White House without permission and just did it. He's a developer. I guess he likes to develop things. I'd mentioned this in another Drudge Report earlier, but to me, this Trump is a troll. He's a king troll, and the significance of the East Wing is that is the seat of the unelected mini government of the United States. That is the First Lady. The First Lady and her staff is there. She gets her own staff, her own chief of staff, her own like mini cabinet members to often enact policy, even though she wasn't elected in any way. So, and a lot of people chafed at that, especially Hillary Clinton as a mini president or a co-president during Bill Clinton's time. So I thought it was symbolic that he would go after the East Wing, and here he's Trump has got an end around Congress who's supposed to approve any kind of outlays of cash like this. But he's got an approval through an emergency little writ from the Supreme Court. So I guess he wins this round. And I guess the real point to make for something like this is when you become the president, you have a certain number of things that you have energy and impetus and you have the support to do. So you have to pick your battles wisely. You might get 2 or 3 big bills to go through, and then that's it. Then you're a lame duck, or you're the people who kind of support you fracture a bit because they're afraid about reelection. Other things that can happen in the world that you don't expect draw your attention away, and Trump seems to pick too many things and using up his energy, his political energy that he gains from election. And this ballroom thing is one of them. It's an unimportant thing. They should focus on a few key issues like a laser beam and not allow controversial distractions. Okay. All this weird stuff that seems to be going on with the military internal fractures, the way that Trump has impetuously invaded Iran, very foolish before the midterm elections. I agree, like most sensible people, that one of these days we would have to invade Iran. Certainly the Obama administration's détente with Iran essentially allowed Iran to gain their nuclear capability. And that's a country that vows to wipe the U.S., wipe Israel, wipe our other allies in the Middle East off the map. They're not even being cagey about it. Like, Iraq had to keep, Iraq, during its heyday with Saddam, Iraq had to say with chemical and biological and nuclear weapons, they had to say, they always tried to make it seem like, yeah, we're getting them. But publicly, we'll pretend like we're not. So they gave the impression externally that, yeah, they're secretly trying to do it. And of course, that led to I don't know if the U.S. miscalculation of invading Iraq the second time, but it was Iraq's it was Iraq's public relation to try to make people think that they were up to something, while also publicly saying they weren't. That encouraged that. So it's an Iraqi miscalculation. In Iran, they're very open about what they want to do and how they want to lead the Middle East and how they want to take over from Saudi Arabia as the administering the sites in the holy sites of Islam. So I don't know. There are a lot of crazy stuff that's happened with the military, and I personally I think I don't like it when you see military men, not the appointed people, stepping down, because it's a signal that they don't agree with what the administration has done, likely in this invasion of Iran. Now this is sort of an October surprise, but it's an August surprise. The media came out with this right on schedule to kind of attack Trump of this little, I believe she's a trollop. That's what they used to say, perhaps, or they make it seem like that. And trying to tell the voters, well, Trump may be a womanizer. Now we've got him. But I think people know that already. And part of the timing of having this come out in a coordinated way. First, we have all these rumors. They set for 2 or 3 days. Now we have intimate letters revealed. This is all in set phases. It isn't like they got letters and let's rush into the press. This is all politics through the media. Oh, well, here's a little more about Iran. October surprise. This is another thing where, let's see, I think I saw this article. They've got these great billboards. See, it's showing U.S. soldiers dying, I guess, because Iran blew up their boats. Lots of threats from Iran. And the October surprise is, again, something to influence the midterm elections. I think countries have to be careful about doing this. If there were some sort of terrorist act, like some spectacular terrorist act somehow, sometimes that might empower a sitting incumbent and indicate to people, yeah, he was right to attack them because of they want to do something like this. And Americans have heard lots of threats like this for a long time. And if they go through with one of them, perhaps that strengthens the incumbent. Perhaps it emboldens the American public to want to go harder against Iran. But when you say October surprise, this is something to influence the midterms. I would guess they're not trying to strengthen Trump. I would guess they're not trying to strengthen Trump. They're trying to maybe hurt the reelection of Republican senators and congressmen, perhaps through something. And again, that might be a wrong strategy for them. Let's see what else. U.S. citizen who deleted phone data says his prosecution puts privacy at risk. Felony charges over airport customs search. I don't know what, like as an average person, you'd say, yeah, they shouldn't be able to search my phone. But I think the people whose phones they're searching are certain people, not just an average nobody like me who's got nothing on his phone. You wonder what kind of specific. Why? Is it that they're not just randomly forcing people to delete stuff off their phone? I mean, very, very straight. I sometimes but I guess, obviously also the media is looking at the principle of this in general, not the accusations that brought this guy to have his phone scanned. But yeah, better not have anything bad on your phone. I don't want to even say that. This again is some weird stuff. Some of these subjects, if you speak about them online, you can't be monetized or you can't get ads served. I think it's supposed to show people that these subjects are beneath contempt, but I think what it shows people is what are they trying to hide. This is the same problem during that epidemic or pandemic that we had. There are a lot of subjects people weren't able to talk about, and it didn't increase true things on the internet. It increased people's suspicions. So I don't think it's ever a good idea to to suppress free speech like that. Woody Allen making a film? This just intrigued me, the day of silence in Bali. This whole concept, all day you're supposed to stay inside and meditate. And I remember during, that epidemic that we talked about, I was overseas, and I was in the capital city of a big city in November, and everything was closed down. And I remember standing out like on a little porch, and it was quiet in the evening, completely quiet. And I thought, how wonderful if, like, every year, every November, everybody just could stay home. That would be like a month off. And you wouldn't go anywhere or do anything, and all the businesses were closed, maybe just some food stores. And it forced you to think about things and unhook. It was a wonderful time. And I remember stories in the news about in national parks in some of these countries where they closed the parks, and suddenly the elephants and the other rare animals that they didn't see would suddenly just be walking around up and down the roads. All it took was a few days of people not there, and the animals who the parks were for reclaimed the land. I thought that was neat. Okay, here's a super old lady. Now, usually when you read these articles about the secret, it's always, the hook is the secrets. What are your secrets to longevity? And it's always something like, try not to have too much stress or you live a stress-free life. Well, I think for me, or maybe most people, that means we're not going to live very long. We're not going to get in our hundreds, because life is just stress. Life is, all it is problems. Problems, 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 and stress. And I've had bad health problems where the doctor just says, try not to be too stressed. That's like, you can't try. That's like try not to be too pregnant once you're pregnant. It's just stress. It's not really something that you control. It kind of falls on you from the outside. And even when you're accepting what's happening in the world and meditating and being grateful for everything that happens and accepting everything without judgment, somehow that stress is still there. You have a level of concern and anxiety for that stress. It's always down there. So if that's impacting my lifespan, well, I'm not going to get into triple digits. Something about the Royals. Something about Paris Hilton. That's a blast from the past. It's the first time I'd heard that name since the early days of the internet, the gossip columnist. These pervert glasses from Meta, they sure, I always thinking about how a company or an industry that's bringing out a new technology, how they lose the plot, or they lose control of the narrative, as young people say on the internet. And this is certainly a situation where people only think of these meta glasses in a negative way, in the same way that people tend to think of an AI in a negative way, because AI was rolled out as like, wow, look how many jobs we're going to eliminate with this AI. Get on board, everybody. And we have these meta glasses that I wouldn't want to be seen in, because they think I'm a pervert. This is trial loss to these companies that create algorithms to try to hook people, especially children, not with good content, with just any kind of garbage that attracts attention, to their own detriment of their own site. And But this is a sort of headline that I'll believe it when I see it. I hope Meta loses, and I hope all these eventualities come to pass. But there are a lot of articles that the media puts out positing some wonderful, brave new future if something happens. But whether it's likely to happen or not, I'm not sure. If I don't know what the chances are of that. Let's see if it says here. It could face 1.2 trillion in damages. Is that going to be paid out to me? Do I get a cut? Social media giant could be forced to remove addictive features. I don't know. So nobody knows. But it just does make a good headline. I always, since I'm trying to do something on YouTube, this reminds me of YouTube as well, where the CEO of YouTube is both rolling out these AI tools and advertising that people can make AI videos without using your face or voice and just generate them automatically if you use our YouTube AI. How wonderful that will be. But at the same time, another part of YouTube is demonetizing all those channels that put out that YouTube slop. And it's very clear that all of these AI generated videos on YouTube are harming it in the same way that these algorithms that, see, for Facebook, I followed some people. I just want to see their posts, all of them, not just a few of them. I don't want them to have to pay to boost that post so I might see it. YouTube is totally lost. Why? I want to see all the posts from all the people on that I've followed, not just some algorithm. What's the point of following anybody if they're going to just show you whatever they want? I got kind of riled up there. That's what an old person. I don't know. Outside the United States, there's a lot of countries like I'm around Thailand a lot. Facebook is gigantic and still used by everybody in Thailand, more than a lot of other platforms. But in the US, maybe in the UK, everyone jokes that YouTube is an old person's platform. But I think globally that's not the case. So me getting riled up over something on Facebook, I'm not sure. Am I interchanging the words Facebook and YouTube? What I want to say is, in the UK and US, Facebook is thought of as an old person's thing. So me getting riled up about it is like an old person getting riled up by Facebook and yelling at clouds. And I think that's it, but I did want to show you this one thing. Are we in a world war right now? A lot of articles came out about this, like this is in April. So this is an idea that there's a lot of big conflicts that have broken out around the world, either directly being pushed by the major powers, or through proxies. So we have a bunch of stuff that's been happening. You know, we have Russia invading Ukraine. We have in the Middle East. We have all order breaking down in the Middle East. Israel being attacked on all sides. Hamas. We had the hostage taking by the Palestinians. We have the situation in Iran, and we have China kind of positing like, wow, maybe we should take over Taiwan. Of course, it all happened during the Biden administration. I don't know, the media seemed to miss that. They didn't really criticize him for that, but we had a breakdown of world order during that time. And so people are positing, are we already in a soft World War III? We're kind of in a Cold War World War III, which is a low-level sort of thing. Open hostilities have not completely broken out, but we're probably very close to it. I think, on the other hand, you might say that a country like China, it doesn't really not advantageous to them to too much get into such a war like that. They have too much to lose. They're in a strategic position where they can be cut off. They're making all the money in the world. They're becoming a major technological power. If they got into some kind of war where it came down to bombing, they would be set back a long way. So we may be in a cold World War III for a long time. So I'm losing my voice again. I got to get used to these streams. And well, thank you. I just like to talk about some of these headlines. It's interesting, to even for me to consider what's going on behind them and think about them kind of out loud. If you like what I'm trying to do here, like and subscribe, and I'll have more quick looks at the headlines in the future. Bye bye.